Morning came with the soft hum of power returning. Hyun opened his eyes to find the blue alien woman staring at him, her silver-black eyes unblinking. "Your heat saved my life," she said flatly. "I am grateful." Hyun moved away quickly, suddenly aware of how close they had been. "The power's back. You should be fine now." The woman sat up, looking around the small station with obvious judgment. "Primitive," she muttered. "You're welcome," Hyun said, rolling his eyes. He stood and went to make coffee. "I'm Hyun. And you are?" "Nari," she said after a pause. "My name is Nari." "That sounds very Earth-like," Hyun noted. "I chose a name your tongue could manage," she replied. "My real name would hurt your throat." Hyun nodded, deciding not to argue. He handed her a cup of hot tea, which she sniffed suspiciously before taking a small sip. "This is acceptable," she admitted. "So, Nari, want to tell me why a blue alien crashed near my research station?" Nari's face hardened. "I did not crash. I made an emergency landing." "Fine. Why did you make an emergency landing?" She stared into her tea. "I am running from my people." Hyun sat down across from her. "Your people who are?" "The Lissari," she said. "The most advanced species in this arm of the galaxy. And they're after you because—" Nari looked up, her silver pupils contracting. "Because I refuse to help them kill your kind." Hyun nearly dropped his coffee. "I'm sorry, what?" Nari stood up and paced the small room. "My people evolved on a warm world. We never needed to adapt to cold. It is our one weakness." She gestured to the window where the blizzard still raged. "This would kill any Lissari in minutes without protection." "I noticed," Hyun said. "I was a military scientist," Nari continued. "I was developing technology to help us overcome cold temperatures. For exploration, I thought." Her face twisted with anger. "Then I found out the truth. My work was being used to prepare for invasion of cold worlds." "Like Earth," Hyun said quietly. "Yes, Earth is perfect for my people. Right size, right atmosphere, right resources. One problem: you humans are already here." She looked at him. "And my government decided you are not advanced enough to deserve respect." Hyun frowned. "So they want to, what, wipe us out? Or use you as slaves?" Nari said. "When I discovered this, I tried to stop the program. They didn't listen. So I stole my research and ran. And crashed here, the place your people fear most." Nari's lips curved slightly. "Not crashed. But yes, Earth was the perfect hiding place. Too cold for my people to search easily." She rubbed her arms. "Though I miscalculated the landing location, I aimed for a warmer region." Hyun leaned back, trying to process everything. "So I'm harboring an alien fugitive who's wanted for treason." "Correct. And your people, who want to invade Earth, might come looking for you." "Also correct." "Great," Hyun sighed. "Just great." Nari stood straighter. "I can leave if you wish, now that the storm is passing." Hyun looked at her, noticing the slight tremble in her blue hands. Despite her pride, she was still weak from the cold. "And go where?" "You'd freeze again in hours." He shook his head. "No, you stay. At least until you're stronger." Nari's eyes widened slightly. "You would help the enemy of your enemy." "I'm helping a person who needs help," Hyun corrected, "even if that person is blue and a bit rude." For the first time, Nari smiled, a small, quick thing that disappeared almost instantly. "You are strange, human." "It's Hyun," he reminded her. "And right now, I'm your only friend on this freezing planet." "Friend," Nari repeated the word like it was new to her. "I have never had a human friend." Outside, the blizzard began to ease, but both knew that bigger storms were coming. Storms that might bring more visitors from the stars. Visitors far less friendly than Nari. The attack came at sunset. Hyun spotted them through his binoculars. The 2 remaining hunters, plus 3 more who must have just landed. 5 of them now, he told Nari. And they have bigger weapons. Nari checked their disruptor device one last time. This will only work at close range. We need to split them up. I've set traps along these 3 routes. Hyun pointed to his map. If we can lead them through here. A blast hit the station wall, shaking the entire building. Too late for planning. Nari grabbed her pack. We need to move now. They escaped through a back tunnel Hyun had dug months ago for emergencies. Behind them, the station erupted in blue flames as more energy blasts hit it. All my research, Hyun said sadly, watching years of work burn. We saved the important parts, Nari reminded him, patting her pack where they had stored their new discoveries. They ran across the open snowfield, heading for the maze of ice formations a kilometer away. The hunters followed, spreading out to surround them. They're hurting us, Hyun realized. Like wolves hunting prey. This way, Nari pulled him toward a narrow path between ice walls. The tallest hunter, clearly the commander, shouted something in the Lissari language. 2 hunters broke away, circling around to cut off their escape. Hyun activated one of his traps as they passed. The snow beneath 2 hunters collapsed, dropping them into a hidden crevasse. Their screams echoed briefly, then stopped. 3 left. Hyun panted as they ran. They reached a large open area with nowhere to hide. The 3 remaining hunters approached slowly, weapons raised. The commander stepped forward, removing his helmet. His face was similar to Nari's. Blue skin, silver eyes, but with hard lines and cold expression. Nari, daughter of the High Science Council, he said in perfect English. Your father sends his regards. Nari froze. Jin? They sent you. Who else would they send for the greatest traitor in Lissari history? Jin replied. Hyun looked between them. You know him. We trained together, Nari said quietly. Before I became a scientist, I was in the military. Jin was my commander. Jin studied Hyun with disgust. So this is what you betrayed your people for? A primitive human. I betrayed no one. Nari shot back. I refused to help destroy an innocent species. Jin laughed. Innocent. Humans are destroying their own world. We would save this planet from them. We don't need saving, Hyun said, stepping forward. And we won't be conquered. Jin looked surprised. You speak our language? He turned to Nari. You taught a human our sacred tongue. I learned it myself, Han lied, wanting to protect Nari. Your language isn't that complex. Jin's face darkened with anger. He raised his weapon at Hyun. Humans truly are arrogant. Your species is nothing compared to ours. Then why take our planet? Han challenged. If we're so inferior, why do you need Earth so badly? For a moment, Jin hesitated. Our world is dying. The climate is cooling rapidly. Within a generation, our planet will be too cold for our people. So instead of adapting, you'll just take someone else's home. Han asked. We deserve to survive. Jin shouted. We are the most advanced species in the galaxy. Advanced in technology, perhaps, Hyun said, but not in wisdom. Jin fired his weapon. The blast hit the ground at Hyun's feet, melting the ice into steam. The next one goes through your heart, Jin warned. Now, Nari, surrender the research you stole, or watch this human die. Don't do it, Hyun told her. If they get your research, they'll use it to invade Earth. Nari looked from Jin to Hyun, then slowly reached into her pack. Instead of research materials, she pulled out their disruptor device. I'm sorry, Jin, she said, but you left me no choice. She activated the device. A pulse of energy shot out, hitting all 3 hunters. Their suits flickered and powered down, leaving them exposed to Antarctica's deadly cold. Run, she yelled to Hyun. As they fled, Jin's angry shout followed them. This isn't over, Nari. The fleet is already coming. The disruptor won't stop them for long, Nari said as they ran through the ice maze. Their suits have backup systems. How much time do we have? Hyun asked, breathing hard. 10 minutes, maybe less. They reached a large ice cave and ducked inside. The blue glow of the ice walls gave them just enough light to see. We're trapped, Hyun realized. The cave had only one entrance, the way they had come in. Outside, they could already hear the hunters recovering. Jin won't kill me, Neri said. He needs my research. But you, she didn't finish the sentence. Hyun looked around desperately. Then he noticed how the wind blew through small cracks in the ice walls. An idea formed in his mind. A crazy, possibly suicidal idea. I need you to trust me, he said, starting to remove his outer cold weather gear. What are you doing? Neri asked in alarm. You'll freeze. Not immediately, Hyun explained, stripping down to his thermal base layer. Humans can survive extreme cold for short periods. It's not comfortable, but it's possible. You can't go out there like that. It's minus 60 degrees. I don't plan to stay out long, Hyun said. He pointed to small holes in the back of the cave. Those lead to a network of tunnels. I've mapped this whole area. If I can draw them away, you can escape through there. Neri grabbed his arm. That's suicide, Hyun. Not if I use what they don't expect, Hyun replied. They think humans are weak, that we can't handle the cold like they can't. But we can. At least a little bit. Before she could argue more, voices echoed from the cave entrance. The hunters had arrived. Trust me, Hyun whispered. He handed her a small device they had built. This contains everything. Our research, the treatment formula, proof that humans and Lissari can work together. Get it to someone who will listen. Neri held the device tightly. I won't leave you behind. You have to, Hyun insisted, for both our worlds. Jin's voice called from just outside. We know you're in there. Surrender now. Hyun took a deep breath and whispered, when I run out, count to 30, then go through the back tunnels. Before Neri could stop him, Hyun burst from the cave entrance, wearing only his base layers. He ran straight at the surprised hunters, then veered left into the blinding snowfield. After him, Jin shouted. The shock of seeing a human running half-naked in Antarctic conditions momentarily stunned the hunters. This gave Hyun the head start he needed. The cold hit him like a physical blow. Every breath burned his lungs. His skin screamed in protest. But he kept running, leading the hunters away from Neri. Behind him, he heard the hunters following. Their suits hummed loudly as they worked overtime to keep the Lissari warm. Hyun ducked behind ice formations, using the landscape he knew so well. The cold was getting worse. His fingers were turning white. He wouldn't last much longer, but he only needed a few minutes. One hunter appeared suddenly to his right. Hyun dodged, but slipped on the ice. He fell hard, rolling down a small slope. The hunter stood over him, weapon raised. Foolish human, he said. Your primitive body cannot withstand our technology. Hyun looked up at him, teeth chattering. Maybe not, but you can't withstand our cold. As if on cue, the hunter's suit began to flicker. The extra power needed to fight the extreme conditions was draining it faster than expected. Hyun forced himself up and tackled the surprised hunter. They rolled in the snow, fighting desperately. The hunter was stronger, but his movements were growing clumsy as his suit failed. How? The hunter gasped as the cold began to reach him. How are you still moving? Because we're not as weak as you think, Hyun answered. The hunter's body went still as the Antarctic cold claimed another victim. Hyun grabbed the hunter's outer suit and pulled it on, gaining precious protection against the deadly cold. In the distance, he heard Jin shouting orders. 2 down, 3 to go. And somewhere, Neri was escaping with the knowledge that could save both worlds, if Hyun could just survive long enough to give her time. Hyun and Neri crouched behind a ridge of ice, watching the 3 Lissari hunters move through the snow. Their silver suits gleamed in the sun as they examined the research station. They're methodical, Hyun whispered, checking everything twice. They're the best hunters on my world, Neri replied. They won't fall for simple tricks. The hunters activated devices on their wrists, filling the air with a soft humming sound. They're scanning for heat signatures, Neri explained. Good thing we're far enough away. Suddenly, the tallest hunter pointed directly at their hiding spot. Or not, Hyun muttered. Run. They sprinted across the snow as energy blasts hit the ice behind them. The weapons made no sound, just flashes of blue light that melted everything they touched. First trap ahead, Hyun panted. Get ready. They ran between two large ice formations. As the hunters followed, Hyun pulled a cord hidden in the snow. A wall of ice and snow crashed down, blocking the path. That won't hold them long, Neri said. It doesn't need to. Just slow them down. They reached the field of ice spikes Hyun had mentioned earlier. Sharp formations of ice, taller than a man, stretched in every direction. The wind howled between them, creating an eerie whistle. We split up here, Hyun said. You go left, I go right. Meet at the cave system 2 kilometers north. Neri nodded. Be careful. Their weapons can. A blue flash lit up the air between them. One of the hunters had caught up already, faster than they expected. Before Hyun could move, the hunter fired again. Hyun, Neri shouted. Hyun dove to the side, but the energy blast grazed his leg. He felt intense heat, then searing pain. He bit back a scream as he rolled behind an ice spike. The hunter advanced, weapon raised for a killing shot. Just then, one of Neri's devices activated, sending out a pulse that made the hunter's suit flicker. The momentary distraction was enough. Neri tackled the hunter, knocking the weapon away. They struggled in the snow, blue hands against silver suit. Despite her skill, the hunter was stronger. He pinned Neri down, reaching for a blade at his side. Ignoring the burning pain in his leg, Hyun grabbed a sharp piece of ice and charge. He drove the makeshift weapon into the back of the hunter's suit. The ice broke through, exposing wires and circuits. The suit's temperature controls failed instantly. The hunter screamed as Antarctic cold rushed in. He stumbled away, desperately trying to seal the breach. Within seconds, his movement slowed, then stopped completely as the deadly cold overcame him. Hyun, you're hurt. Neri rushed to his side. I'm fine, he winced, but blood soaked through his pants. No, you're not. She helped him to a nearby ice cave. We need to treat this now. Inside the cave, Neri examined his wound. The energy weapon burned through your suit and skin. Why didn't you tell me how bad it was? We needed to keep moving, Hyun said through gritted teeth. Neri stared at him with confusion. You're in severe pain, yet you still fought. How? Adrenaline, Hyun explained. Human bodies produce it under stress. Helps us ignore pain temporarily. Fascinating, Neri murmured as she treated his wound with supplies from their pack. Lissari feel pain immediately and fully. It's why we developed better weapons to avoid combat altogether. While treating him, she took a small sample of his blood on her finger, studying it closely. What are you doing? Hyun asked. Your blood. Neri's eyes widened. It's different from ours. The way it carries oxygen, the speed it clots. She looked at him with new wonder. Humans aren't just stubborn. You're biologically designed to survive trauma. Not designed, Hyun corrected. Evolved. Countless generations surviving harsh conditions, predators, wars. My people thought this made humans primitive, Neri said quietly. But now I see it differently. What we considered weakness might actually be your greatest strength. Outside, they heard the remaining hunters calling to each other. They were getting closer. We need to move. Hyun tried to stand. Rest a moment first, Neri insisted, still examining his blood with fascination. I think I just discovered something that could change everything. 3 days passed. The storm cleared, but living together proved harder than surviving the cold. Why do you eat this? Neri poked at the instant noodles Hyun had made. Because it's easy and I'm alone here most of the time. Hyun slurped his noodles loudly. Neri winced at the noise. On my world, making such sounds would be deeply shameful. Well, we're not on your world, Hyun said. On Earth, some cultures consider it a compliment to the cook. A primitive custom, Neri muttered. Hyun put down his fork. You know, for someone whose life I saved, you sure like to call my species primitive. I am stating facts, Neri said. The Lissari mastered space travel when humans were still fighting with swords. Yet here you are, hiding on our primitive planet. Neri's blue skin darkened slightly, her version of a blush. Hyun guessed. Your point is fair, she admitted, though your technology is still far behind ours. Hyun looked at the small device Neri always kept in her pocket. Is that how you speak English so well? Some kind of translator. Neri nodded and placed the silver disc on the table. It analyzes brain patterns and converts thoughts to speech. Can I see it? Hyun asked, genuinely curious. No, Neri snatched it back. You wouldn't understand it anyway. Hyun's patience snapped. I have 3 phases. I'm Earth's leading xenobiologist. Stop treating me like I'm stupid just because I'm human. 3 phases. Neri tilted her head. Lissari children learn more before their 10th year. Hyun stood up and walked away. I'm going to check the weather monitors. He stomped to his equipment room, needing space. Through the window, he could see new storm clouds gathering. Another blizzard was coming. An hour later, Neri found him still working. The temperature is dropping again, she said, her voice softer than usual. I know, Hyun replied without looking up. Big storm coming tonight. Neri hesitated, then asked, How do you live in such cold? It would kill my people in minutes without special suits. Hyun turned to her. For once, she seemed genuinely curious, not judgmental. Humans evolved to adapt, he explained. Our bodies can handle a wide range of temperatures. Not perfectly, but enough to survive with the right protection. Interesting, Neri said. Lissari focused on technology instead of biological adaptation. We changed our environment, not ourselves. Different paths, Hyun shrugged. Not better or worse, just different. Neri considered this. Perhaps. The lights flickered as the wind outside grew stronger. Power grid is getting hit again, Hyun sighed. Better prepare for another outage. Together, they gathered blankets, emergency lights, and food that didn't need cooking. As they worked, Neri asked more questions about humans, how they survived in deserts, mountains, even underwater for short periods. Your species is surprisingly resilient, she admitted. Most life forms specialize for one environment. Humans adapt to many. Is that a compliment? Hyun raised an eyebrow. An observation, Neri said, but her lips curved slightly. When night fell, the storm hit with full force. As predicted, the power went out again. The temperature inside dropped rapidly. Will your backup generator work this time? Neri asked, already shivering. I fixed it, but it only powers essential systems, not heating, Hyun explained. We'll have to share body heat again. Neri nodded. This time, there was no argument as they huddled under the blankets together. Your people really never evolved cold resistance, Hyun asked as they lay in the darkness. We never needed to, Neri said quietly. Our world has no seasons, no polar regions. So what happens if a Lissari gets too cold? First shivering, then muscle failure, then death, Neri said. Or what? Torpor, she explained. A deep sleep state. But we can only enter it with special training, which I never learned. Hyun pulled the blanket tighter around them. Well, no torpor tonight. We'll get through this storm together. In the darkness, Neri's hand found his. Together, she repeated, as if testing how the word felt. Outside, the blizzard raged, but inside, something new was forming. Understanding. Morning brought clear skies but terrible news. Hyun's satellite alert system was beeping loudly, waking them both. "What is that noise?" Nari asked, sitting up quickly. Hyun rushed to his computers. Something entered Earth's orbit directly above Antarctica. He looked at her with worry. Something big. Nari's blue face turned pale. "They found me." "Who?" "The Lissari." "A scout ship," she confirmed, looking at his screen. "They must have tracked my escape pod's energy signature." Hyun tried to use his radio to call for help, but only static answered. "They're blocking your signals," Nari explained. "Standard procedure before sending down hunters." "Hunters?" Hyun felt his mouth go dry. "Elite soldiers trained to capture or kill targets in any environment." Nari began pacing. "They'll have temperature-controlled suits to protect them from the cold." "So we run?" Hyun asked. Nari shook her head. "They'll track us easily with their technology. Our only chance is to use what they don't expect." "Which is?" "You," she said simply. "Human knowledge of this harsh environment. They've never fought on a world this cold." Hyun nodded slowly. "I know this area better than anyone. All the ice caves, hidden crevices, snowdrifts. And I know Lissari technology, their weaknesses." Nari looked at him with new respect. "Together, we might have a chance." They worked quickly. Hyun pulled out maps of the surrounding area, while Nari modified some of his research equipment into makeshift weapons. "Their suits will protect them from cold, but have limited battery life," she explained. "If we can drain their power faster." "I know how," Han said. "There's a field of ice spikes 2 kilometers east. The wind there is 3 times stronger than normal. It would force their suits to use more power." "Good thinking," Nari nodded. She showed him a small device she had built. "This will disrupt their tracking systems, but only for short bursts." By noon, they had set 6 traps around the station. Hyun packed emergency supplies while Nari worked on one last device. "What's that?" Hyun asked. "A warning system." She attached small sensors to the walls. "It will tell us when they land." As if on cue, the sensors began to flash red. "They're here," Nari whispered. Hyun looked out the window and saw a sleek silver craft descending about a kilometer away. It was beautiful and terrifying. "How many hunters usually come on missions like this?" he asked. 3, Nari replied. "A tracker, a tech specialist, and a commander." 3 against 2, Hyun said. "Not great odds when they have advanced technology." "But they've never faced a human who knows the cold," Nari reminded him. "Your kind survives conditions that would kill my people instantly. That's an advantage they won't expect." They watched from the window as 3 figures in gleaming silver suits emerged from the craft. Even from a distance, Hyun could see they moved with perfect coordination, like predators. "We need to leave now," Nari said, grabbing her makeshift weapons. "They'll reach the station in 15 minutes." Hyun put on his cold weather gear and handed an extra set to Nari. "Put these on over your clothes. They're designed for humans, but they'll help." As they prepared to slip out the back exit, Nari stopped and looked at Hyun. "Why are you risking your life for me? I'm not even your species." Hyun considered the question. "Because it's the right thing to do. And because if they want to hurt Earth, then you're not the only one they're hunting." Nari touched his arm gently. "On my world, helping an enemy of the state is treason." "Good thing we're on my world then," Han said with a small smile. "Here, helping someone who needs it is just being human." They slipped out into the blinding white landscape, the sun reflecting off endless snow. Behind them, 3 silver figures moved steadily closer, weapons ready. The hunt had begun. 6 months later, Antarctic spring brought sunlight that lasted almost all day. Outside the newly rebuilt research station, Hyun stood watching the horizon. His leg had healed, though he would always have a scar from the energy weapon. The sensors picked up something entering orbit, Nari said, joining him outside. She had stayed on Earth after everything that happened, working with Hyun to perfect their research. Lissari ships? Hyun asked. Yes, but not military this time. It's a diplomatic vessel. Hyun nodded. Their plan had worked better than they could have hoped. After escaping the hunters, Neri had used their ship's communication system to broadcast their research throughout the Lissari network. The evidence that humans and Lissari could cooperate, that human DNA held the key to cold adaptation, had reached the right people. Do you think Jin will be with them? Hyun asked. Probably. He survived after all. That had been a surprise. After Hyun had defeated 2 hunters, Jin had cornered him near a cliff edge. But instead of killing Hyun, Jin had listened to what he had to say about cooperation between their species. Something had changed in the commander that day. A sleek silver ship appeared in the sky, much larger than the hunter craft. It landed gently on the snow 100 meters from the station. Ready? Neri asked. As I'll ever be, Hyun replied. They walked together to meet the ship. The main door opened, and 5 Lissari emerged. 4 wore formal robes, but the 5th Hyun recognized immediately. Jin. Neri nodded in greeting. Jin looked different now. His face was less hard, his eyes less cold. Neri. Hyun. He bowed slightly to both of them. I bring greetings from the Lissari High Council. Not here to arrest me, Neri asked. No, your research changed everything. Jin gestured to the others. These are our top scientists. They'd verified your work. The cold adaptation treatment is already being tested. One of the scientists stepped forward. The human DNA sequences, combined with our technology, are remarkable. We can now survive temperatures that would have killed us before. And the invasion plans? Hyun asked directly. Jin looked uncomfortable, but answered honestly. Cancelled. Your broadcast reached civilian networks. People learned the truth, that our government was planning war when cooperation was possible. There have been political changes. Jin helped us, another scientist added. After what he saw here on Earth, he became one of our strongest allies. Hyun looked at Jin with surprise. What changed your mind? Jin was quiet for a moment. When I saw you run into that blizzard half-naked to save Neri, I realized everything I'd been taught about humans was wrong. No inferior species would sacrifice themselves like that. It made me question everything. The lead scientist presented a data tablet to Hyun and Neri. We come with a proposal. An official alliance between our worlds. Human adaptability combined with Lissari technology could help both our species reach new stars. Hyun reviewed the proposal. It was fair, respectful, based on equal exchange of knowledge. Earth's governments will need to review this, he said. Of course, we're prepared to wait. The scientist looked at Neri. We also bring news from your father. Your exile has been lifted. You can come home. Neri looked at Hyun, then back at her people. My work isn't finished here. We understand, Jin said with a knowing smile. You'll remain as our first ambassador to Earth. As the diplomats returned to their ship to prepare for meetings with Earth's leaders, Neri and Hyun walked back to the research station. Ambassador Neri, Hyun teased, sounds important. Less important than what we discovered together, she replied. They stopped to watch the sunrise painting the ice in gold and pink. Hyun reached for her hand, and she took it without hesitation. You know, he said with a smile, all this started because you ordered me into your bed. Neri laughed, a sound that had become more common these past months. Shut up, human, she said, but her voice was warm with affection. As they stood together, blue hand in human hand, the dawn of a new era broke over the Antarctic ice, an era where differences became strengths, and ancient enemies became something much more. They made it back to the research station after dark. The hunters had lost their trail in a sudden snowstorm, nature itself seeming to help them. We got lucky, Neri said as Hyun locked the door behind them. But they'll find us again by morning. Hyun limped to his lab equipment. His leg hurt, but he could walk. Then we better work fast. Nari placed a drop of Hyun's blood under his microscope. I need to confirm what I saw in the cave. While she studied his blood, Hyun examined the broken pieces of the hunter's suit they had managed to grab. This technology is amazing, he said, turning a small circuit in his hands. The way it regulates temperature is unlike anything we have on Earth. Focus on the power source, Nari suggested. If we can disrupt it, their suits will fail faster. They worked through the night. Hyun's leg throbbed, but he ignored it. Their lives depended on finding an advantage. Near midnight, Nari suddenly stood up from the microscope. I was right. Hyun, look at this. He joined her at the station's main computer where she had uploaded her findings. Your DNA contains sequences that Lissari don't have, she explained, pointing to the screen. These genes help you adapt to temperature changes. That's basic human biology. Hyun shrugged. No, you don't understand. Nari's voice rose with excitement. These sequences could be the key to helping my people survive cold without conquering other worlds. Hyun stared at her. You think human DNA could help the Lissari? With the right technology, yes. Nari typed rapidly on his computer, combining her knowledge with his research. Instead of taking your planet, we could learn from your species. Cooperation instead of conquest. Hyun nodded. But will your leaders listen? Nari's face fell. No. They believe other species exist to serve us. They would never admit humans have something valuable to teach. While they talked, Hyun continued studying the hunter's equipment. Something about the design bothered him. This is odd, he said, pointing to a component. Why make it so complicated? A simpler design would work better. Nari looked at what he was showing her. That's just how we build things. Every part has a specific purpose. But it's inefficient, Hyun argued. Human engineers would solve this with half the parts. He grabbed paper and drew a new design. Nari watched with growing surprise. That would actually work better, she admitted. How did you think of that solution so quickly? Humans had to solve problems with limited resources for most of our history, Hyun explained. We learned to improvise, to find creative solutions. Lissari are taught to follow established patterns, Nari said quietly. We master existing knowledge, but rarely create new approaches. They looked at each other, understanding growing between them. Your people adapt physically, Nari said. And your people master technology, Hyun finished. Together, Nari started. We could be stronger than either species alone. Hyun completed her thought. A new energy filled the room as they returned to their work. Hyun modified the hunter's technology using his human perspective, while Nari combined his DNA analysis with her knowledge of Lissari biology. By dawn, they had created two things: a disruptor that could disable the hunter's suits, and the beginning of a treatment that could help Lissari withstand cold temperatures. This could change everything, Nari whispered, holding a small vial of liquid. No need for war, for taking Earth. My people could adapt instead. If we can convince them, Hyun reminded her. Nari nodded solemnly. First, we must survive the hunters. Then we can worry about changing an empire. Outside, the sun rose over the endless white landscape. Somewhere out there, two Lissari hunters were still searching for them, growing closer by the minute. But for the first time since Nari crashed, they had more than just hope. They had a plan that could save not just themselves, but both their worlds. The wind howled outside Hyun's small research station. Another day in Antarctica, another blizzard. He checked the thermometer. -40 degrees. Normal for this place, deadly for most. Hyun pulled his thick sweater tighter and sipped hot tea. The station was warm enough, but the cold always found ways to creep in. As Earth's top xenobiologist, he had chosen this remote post 3 years ago. If aliens could survive here, they could survive anywhere on Earth. Just me and my research, Hyun muttered to himself. He liked the quiet. No office politics. No awkward social events. Just science and solitude. His computers beeped suddenly. The movement sensors outside had picked up something big. Probably just ice falling again. Then a second alarm sounded. This one was different. The heat sensors. Something hot had crashed about 2 kilometers away. Hyun frowned and checked the radar. There it was, a small object, definitely not a meteor, too controlled in its descent. Not again, he sighed. This would be the third unidentified craft this year. The others had been secret military tests. But still, he had to check. He pulled on his extreme weather gear, thermal underwear, 2 wool layers, the special insulated suit, and finally the outer shell that blocked wind. The hood, the goggles, the oxygen mask for when breathing became too painful. The gloves so thick he could barely bend his fingers. Outside, the wind tried to knock him down immediately. Hyun leaned into it, following the GPS on his wrist. The visibility was near zero, just white fury everywhere. After an hour of fighting through the storm, he saw it. A small craft, sleek in silver, half buried in snow. Not human-made. The design was too smooth, too perfect. First contact in Antarctica, Hyun whispered. Of course it would happen to the guy who hates talking to people. The craft had a crack along one side. Something was moving inside. Hyun approached carefully and found what looked like a door. After studying it for a moment, he pressed the smoothest part of the surface. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, curled up against the cold, was a woman. At least she looked mostly like a woman. Her skin was blue, her hair silver and flowing despite the lack of wind. Her eyes opened, completely black except for silver pupils. "Stay back," she hissed in perfect English, though her mouth moved strangely with the words. She tried to sit up but fell back, shivering violently. "You need help," Hyun said. "You'll die in this cold." "I can handle myself," she said, but her blue lips were turning purple. Her thin clothes, some kind of uniform, provided no protection against Antarctic temperatures. "You can't," Hyun said. "Your body temperature is dropping too fast. You need shelter." When she tried to stand, her legs gave out. Hyun caught her before she hit the floor of her craft. "Don't touch me, human," she snapped, but she had no strength to push him away. "My research station is an hour away. You'll never make it like this." Hyun made a quick decision and lifted her. She was surprisingly light. "How dare you?" she protested weakly. "Complain later." "Survive now," Hyun said, carrying her back into the storm. The journey back was twice as hard. The alien woman fell unconscious halfway, which worried Hyun. Her skin was getting colder by the minute. He walked faster, ignoring the burn in his muscles. When they finally reached the station, the power was flickering from the storm. Hyun placed her on his bed and turned up the heating as high as it would go. Then the lights went out completely. "No, no, no," Hyun said, rushing to check the backup generator. It was dead too. In hours, the station would be as cold as outside. The alien woman stirred, her eyes opening slightly. "Why is it still so cold?" she whispered. "Power's out. Backup failed." Hyun grabbed all his blankets. "I need to warm you up, or you'll die." She looked at him with those strange silver-black eyes, then at the pile of blankets, understanding their situation instantly. "Shut up, human. We're freezing. Get in my bed now," she ordered with surprising strength, pulling at his arm. Hyun didn't argue. Their survival depended on shared body heat now. As he slid under the blankets next to this strange blue woman from the stars, one thought kept repeating in his mind. First contact was definitely not going according to the scientific protocols.